Hello everyone. Yesterday evening I made a short video where I just decided to see how easy or otherwise it might be to start my little Triumph Tiger Cub after nearly 2.5 months of standing doing nothing, with E10 fuel in it, a 6-volt electrical system and points ignition. And it's obvious it's got the Zenith carburettor that, well, there's a more or less complete one of those. We haven't got a throttle slide in that one actually, but other than that it's pretty complete. That's what it looks like. Throttle stop screw, mixture screw, tickler button, and there was a comment made basically that said that this carburettor, this type of carburettor, has got a strangler, not an enrichener. Well, no, it hasn't got a strangler. It has got an enrichener, and it's a 2-stage one at that. In fact, there's 2 clicks, as I've demonstrated on my Tiger Cub when I've started up. Basically, the choke is fully on when the knob is down like that. Halfway up, there's little clicks you can feel. Halfway up is half choke, if you like, and fully up is the choke fully open. And we'll see how that works now. Here's the plunger, and you can see we've got a larger hole there, a smaller hole there, and then obviously nothing. And that works in here. I hope that we'll see that. The choke plunger fits. It's got a little peg on it there, which lines up with that slot there next to the throttle slide area, and it fits in there, and that's how it sort of clicks up and down. And what it does, there is the jet for the cold starting circuit, the choke, the enrichener. And that jet feeds up through that passageway there, hopefully we'll see that, then along there and into the chamber where this plunger works. And what you got is, when the choke knob is fully down, the big hole lines up with the fuel passageway. One click up, the smaller hole lines up with the fuel inlet passageway, and obviously when you're right up, it's out the way. So, well, when I say out the way, it's actually blocking it off, because you've got obviously the big hole, choke fully on, small hole, half choke if you like, and then up the next click, and that closes it off completely, so there's no fuel coming through that way. And that passageway connects up, you can possibly just see a little hole there, and that's where the fuel gets sucked in by the engine from this jet, which lives down in this recess here in the float bowl. So that's how that all works. It's an entirely separate circuit, just as you would have on an Amal MK2 or a Mikuni, but even more intricate in that it's not just on or off, you've actually got a midway setting on it as well for while you're warming up. So that's actually for sort of late 1950s, it's actually more technologically advanced than a Mikuni, the starting circuit. Basically the same principle. You got a float chamber there, and float of course, which fastens onto the bottom of the carburettor. And interestingly enough, obviously the float hinges, it's sort of crossways across the bike, not fore and aft like you often get. And should you wish to, I've never felt the need, but you can actually adjust the float height a little just by slewing the carb around a couple of degrees on the inlet stub. But usually perfectly vertical is fine. It's a concentric type carburettor as well, in that the main jet is obviously central underneath the throttle slide, and also central in the float bowl when the float bowl is fitted. So it's a concentric carburettor. It's got a 2-position cold starting circuit. I shouldn't really call it a choke, because a choke is more what you'd have in mind as being a strangler. so you can see it's not. And then obviously you've got the detachable main jet, and then behind that you would have this, which is your emulsion tube and or needle jet. That fits in there, and obviously when you screw the main jet in, that locks that in place. A possible downside about this type of carburettor is the design of the slide and the needle, and the needle is actually integral with the slide itself, and you can't move it, you can't change it or anything. I thought perhaps they were firmly pressed in, but I don't think they are. I think originally if you wanted a new needle you'd have to get a new slide as well, so perhaps that's not quite so clever. But having said that, this is a very old original slide and needle assembly that I ran in my little Tiger Cub for long enough, and it was only that I happened to find a brand new one in some spares I had that I took this one out to change it. So I actually keep this one carefully wrapped up with the original jets from the carburettor as well, because I found new jets, so they're the originals put away safely. So that basically is your Zenith carburettor, and I've heard and read all sorts of things about them being troublesome, and you know, for various reasons people don't like them, but I've got to say that little cub of mine starts up very easily and ticks over nice and reliably, runs from no throttle at all to full throttle without any sort of glitches or hitches or whatever. I think they're a very good underrated carburettor, but obviously for some reason they never really caught on. Perhaps it was their size, you could only get them in 17 or 18mm sizes, and I suppose even once the Tiger Cubs started to get a little bit more performance than the earlier versions, these were probably obsolete because they needed something bigger on them anyway. But for little 1958 road cub with 7:1 compression and a standard camshaft and everything, mine's actually got an 18 on it. It should have had a 17, so someone's tuned it up. They've gone 1mm bigger on mine. But nice little carburettor, but I can see that perhaps it would have its limitations on the performance front. But hopefully that might help throw some light on how these interesting and rather rare little old carburettors worked. And like I say, there's the cold start plunger. It's not really a choke, it's a two-stage enrichener, and I hope that that might have been of interest to some. And next time we run the Tiger Cub, we'll know that it's one of these that's providing the breathing for it. And what a good little underrated carburettor they really are.